So about what, 18, 24 months ago, Nielsen launched online campaign ratings, an effort to leverage Facebook data to quantify, measure, guarantee ad spend. It's become kind of a pretty influential method of doing so. Could you tell us, could you contextualize how it's gone since launch?
Yes. I think the thing to bear in mind here is that what we've deployed is a system that does what online has always struggled to do, and that is to measure people. So online's always been fantastic at measuring browsers, cookies, and providing that fantastic contextual data that actually has driven its growth. But the one thing it's always struggled with is producing people-based campaign-level measurement to an almost infinite level of granularity, but also providing metrics that mean something outside of online. And so that you can compare with television. So we've deployed online campaign ratings which will provide the reach, frequency and gross rating points for an online campaign. It's been adopted quite strongly across most of the markets that we've deployed in. I think the bigger story is not who's using the service almost, but how they're using the service, because we're now seeing the emergence in the US of companies trading on guarantees, and we have publishers in the UK who are now moving toward the sort of models that will enable them to trade off those guarantees in the UK as well. So it's definitely a service that is slightly slow burn, because it's a very, very new concept to online, and it takes time. But it's definitely building up ahead of steam now.
It does sound pretty counterintuitive, does it not, initially, to imagine online buyers buying against gross rating point. Conventionally, the old style, if you like, TV method of guaranteeing. Do you see the irony there in online using that method?
I don't see the irony. The truth is that online campaign ratings is not designed to wipe away everything else in online that comes before it. I very much see the fact that we have a situation where we've got fantastic contextual data, fantastic behavioral targeting data. Why not have a simple measure of people as well? Particularly if that simple measure of people can be then directly compared with another medium and also plugged into an econometric modelling. Nielsen are one of the largest suppliers of econometric modelling in the world, and the one thing we know is that the existing online metrics don't work very well in an econometric model. You need some form of understanding of people and how they've been exposed to campaigns to really understand what's going on. So I don't see the fact that we're measuring people with very simple metrics as counterintuitive anyway. It's complementing an ecosystem. And we do know that from some of the behavioral targeting data that we've seen, some of it is highly accurate, and just like any other industry, some of it's not so good. And we are working with a lot of suppliers now to help sort of pre-verify a lot of their activities, so that they know that if the campaign target at a comms planning level before it hits online is 18 to 34-year-olds, that the behavioural segments they're delivering are mainly concentrated around those areas. Because nothing worse than having a comms plan for 15 to 24-year-old males and the demographic profiling of all of the behavioural targeting 65 plus women. You want those two things to overlap, and I think that's where they work very well together.
So one of the things we're talking about here today is so-called programmatic, although it feels like half of the people in this room actually want to retire that term already. But super targeting, automated buying, how can GRP and how can OCR connect up with so-called programmatic? Are they mutually exclusive? Are they complementary?
I think they're fairly complementary. Look, if you look at the route that programmatic has taken as a young industry, it's brought some fantastic benefits: granularity, efficiency to the buying process, behavioural targeting, all of that good stuff. But it's subordinated some of the things it was happy to trade off. We have issues around measuring people. We would all recognise that there are issues right across Europe in terms of the risk of privacy regulation to the collection and processing and targeting for personally identifiable information. And I think what will happen is that as programmatic increases in its success, as it really ramps up, it'll become a slight victim of its own success, in that some of those things that it's subordinated, the measurement of people, these issues around privacy will surface, and also really importantly, encoding. Now, we don't talk about this very much, but if we're going to get to a point where we want true multi-screen measurement, we have to address the issue of encoding so that we can actually disaggregate the linear one-to-many model for television and the dynamic many-to-one approach of online, so that we can really understand how the exposures work, because then we can disaggregate the actual creative exposures. And that's really, really important and a massive focus for us. There's no point just getting device overlap for cross-media. If we want to get programmatic into a place where it can be compared to television, then we have to address a number of issues around measuring people, the same metrics, and ultimately encoding, which is really, really important.
So many programmatic exponents seem to argue that whilst that practice, so that practice will absolve advertising practitioners of carrying out certain tasks that are not necessarily enjoyable or creative. Does GRP, does OCR then become kind of one of the things that one of the tasks that supposedly these employees would undertake?
I think in terms of beginning to understand what looks good and what transfers well to other media, I think we will see many organisations having to take on board what this means. And if you look at the UK for a moment, about 30% of all spend in the UK is online. There are a lot of digital natives. Probably digital natives never heard of a GRP before. There's going to be quite a big learning curve there, and we see it today in the marketplace. So yes, organisations will probably have to invest, and I think it remains a big challenge for a lot of agencies about how they continue to resource this increasing avalanche of data as it comes through. So I think that's something that we're going to have to learn to work around.
You've made some updates to OCR over the last few weeks. That's a mechanism that has measured solely using one data source, I think, up until now. That's Facebook. You just added Experian. How's that going to work?
Yes, so the online campaign rating service was delivered to aggregate multiple data sets. So Facebook happened to be the first in the hopper. As you say, we've now in North America added Experian, and there's probably a conversation going on about the rest of the world as well. Experian will help us augment further demographic profiling. That could be around geodemographic profiling, it could be income-based, family size, presence of children, those sorts of things, to enable us to build out the profiling of online campaign ratings. And also, it also enables us, as we go through the process of developing cross-campaign ratings, so deduped, overnight TV plus online ratings, we have another data set with which to undertake that integration with the existing television data sources of record in each market.